Okay, so we're going to talk about how to do something like this to finish up our lesson on still lives. So we've done bottles, we've talked about lighting, I'm going to get a little more into that. And of course you'll notice there's cloth, which is something we have not done yet. So I'm going to go over cloth um, and some more advanced lighting. And that's really it. That's really the only new thing that you're going to get out of this lesson. Oh, and then some stuff with the camera. You'll notice stuff in the background is blurry. So some of the stuff is more advanced. You don't have to do it, but I just figured I'd put it in there for those of you who want to. Okay, so I have some bottles already because that was on Tuesday. That was our lesson. So now let's get some cloth. So the first thing that you want to do with cloth is you need something to drape it over. So I'm just going to kind of get this cube. I'm going to hit 7 to go into the top view. Let's see, scale on the X, scale on the Y. So we have like a little table, and we're actually not going to use this table. I'm going to delete it later. This is just to drape the cloth over. You'll notice I actually don't have this cloth on anything. Okay. So, we can always adjust it later. So I'm going to make my cloth now, and I'm going to make it just from a plane. Okay, so same thing, I'm going to hit 7, and I'm going to scale my plane to be a little bigger than this table. So I just hit S and Y. Okay, maybe just like even a little bigger than that. Okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to pull it above the table. And now, right now, when I go into edit mode, right, there's just one big polygon. But we need to make a bunch of things so that this cloth, well, it will be a cloth, can fold. So what I need to do is do something called subdivide. Now we've learned how to make loop cuts with Control R, right? So I could do this very tediously, but it might not be even and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is right click and just do subdivide. And then you'll notice it just turned into 4 polygons. But I'm going to like really bump this up. Now, what I'm doing today, I did 75 cuts, right? So it's very detailed. What I'm doing today, I'm on a pretty good computer. It's a gaming PC. So you might be testing the limits of your computer. So if you have a little bit of an older computer, maybe do 40 or 50 or something like that. But, I want this to look cool and nice for you guys. Okay, so now I've got the cuts, I've got that can fold, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, this is new stuff. I'm going to go to this tab here called Physics Properties. And we need to set both these up to be physics properties. But this one here is just going to be collision. That's it. That's all we have to do on that. That's just telling it things can collide with this thing. Then this, we're going to do cloth. And right away, when I hit play, you'll see our cloth collides with the collision object, right? So we could do a little bit better, right? First of all, let's do shade smooth that out. I'm going to set up some things like quality steps. I'm going to bump that up to 10. And then I want it to collide with itself. Maybe we'll make the collisions more detailed as well. Self collisions. Right? So you could mess around with this stuff all day just for the sake of this demo. I'll just kind of leave it. It might not look perfect, but you can play around with it if you'd like. Okay, so let's check this out. So you notice I bumped up the quality, so it's going a bit slower now. Okay, so I'll just kind of let it play until it looks decent. Okay, good enough, I guess. Okay, so once that's there, I'm going to go to this wrench. That's where our cloth is. And I'm just going to hit apply. Right here, apply. Now, if you're in 2.9, it's going to look a little different. You're going to have to go here and hit apply. But I don't know why I like it here better. But so we hit apply. Okay, and now it still looks pretty crummy. So maybe you remember this wonderful subdivision surface tool. It just kind of makes things look much better. I'm going to bump that up to 3. You can just get rid of that cube now. Right? I'm going to do this one more time for the back, so we can get another cloth to play with as well. And make it a a little skinnier, S and Y. And I'm going to do something because I want the cloth to like really, I want to see as many folds as I can. So I just made some loop cuts, and I'm going to hit 3, go to face mode, and just take these. All right, maybe actually, I didn't do this before, but just kind of pulling these up with, oh, that's cool. Easy, whatever. This does not, I'm just making this up. Easy, okay. So now we have something like a little uneven for it to fold on. So same thing, we're going to go to the physics tab here, turn that into a collision. That's all we have to do there. Right, and now I'm going to add a plane. So I'm doing Shift A to add these things. It's just a lot quicker. You can go, you can go up to add there if you want. Let's see. Make this kind of really big. That's good. We want to put it as much in the middle of this thing as we can, otherwise it's going to fall right off because it is really just like a cloth. So same thing, I'm going to go into edit mode, right click, subdivide, and we bump that up to 75. You should definitely do 50, 40 if you have an older computer. Okay, so now we apply cloth. Oops. You'll notice my timeline is at 41, so it went too far ahead, so I'm going back to 0. Quality, I'm going to bump that up to 10. Collision quality, maybe 4. And then turn on self collisions. Okay, it's going to go pretty slow. And now you'll notice it's going to go right through the bottles. It's going to go right through the other cloth because none of that stuff has collision on it. So that's pretty good. We get a pretty good fold in the middle there. And all that will help give your background like a lot more detail, make it more interesting. I forgot to turn on shade smooth, but I'll just do that once it's done. So maybe, I guess if I had to redo this, I would make both ends much higher so that we get more of a fold in the middle. I think that's kind of the move. But just for the demo, this is fine. So shade smooth. I'm going to go to the wrench, hit apply, then go to subdivision surface. Once again, if you have an older computer, subdivision surface might really slow it down. So careful with that. Maybe you want to keep lower numbers. Okay, so there we go. We got some cloth going on. Okay. So now I think it's time to make a camera. 0 to go in it, and hopefully you all should know how to do this by now. If you do not, please do office hours with me. So let's see, I'm going to do the Instagram 1080 by 1080 again, I think. For this image, it's nicer to have square. Oops. Okay, let's see. I'm going to get out of my camera for a minute and just zoom out. Go, just so I get a good frame. Okay. And I'm just going to take a second and kind of organize these bottles. In my last one, I made a bowl with some fruit, do a bunch of stuff. This is more about lighting and stuff like that. You should already know how to do bottles. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time. That's okay, so that's good enough. Good enough for the demo. So let's see. What kind of I want to see is some side of that table, so I'm going to duplicate this sheet too. I like this fold, right? That's a lot. That's too much. Just hitting R and Z to rotate on the Z axis. Hit S to scale. Let go, just so we have some more details in the background. So I'm just making sure nothing's overlapping. G and Y. I'm just getting rid of all that blender boring gray background, right? Hopefully in your homeworks, no gray background. So I do have some down there. Maybe I just need to like zoom in a bit or something. All right, so just spend some time like really trying to make a good composition. Obviously, I'm not going to do that here, right? Because you have a ton of examples and that you can look at of professional, well done still lives, especially the Takashi Murata artist we looked at. He has some really cool still lives. Like, just get inspired by those things. Okay, we have just a little bit, but that's okay. I think that's going to be fine. Okay. All right. So right now, when we go to rendered, obviously, am I going to get a crash? Nothing's happening, right? So, you know, we can, like before, we can add like a nice area light. All right, bump that up. Start getting some stuff going on. I'm going to show you a new way to light things, which is kind of easier and nicer. And it's called HDRI lighting. I put a link in the agenda for today where you can get these HDRI images at this place called HDRI Haven. Right, and they have a bunch of stuff, but I kind of wanted like a nice night scene. They have a whole bunch of stuff. I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it now. They also have studio setups you can get, and it shows you down there what the rendered thing will look like with this lighting setup. Okay? So I know maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to show you. This is a totally different way to light things. Okay, now pay close attention here because this is totally new thing. So I'm going to pop up a new window. Okay, so notice I just kind of like hovered in the corner until I see that cross, and then I pull it over. So now I have a second little interface window. And up here, editor type, we're usually in 3D viewport. We're going to go to shader editor. Now this is a whole thing. We'll get into it a little more later. I'll hit N to make that go away. Usually shader editor is for objects. So every object has this like shader thing. You can get much more into details in the materials. But here we're just going to go to world, add texture, environment texture. Okay. And then I'm going to open up in my downloads folder. I have a bunch of HDRIs I downloaded here. Right? So each one's going to do a different thing, and I'll show you. So here's like a studio. Right? See that? So see how it's all lit now, and I can turn off the area light to show you as well. Right? And now this doesn't look that great, but as soon as we get things glossy, let's add some glossy materials. Principled, let's go to glossy. Not get it off, right? See how that starts as opposed to this with the area light is quite a bit different, right? So let me just take a second and let's just get all types of different. Let's maybe make this one metallic. I'm not naming any of these, but make sure you name your stuff, right? You know. Glass does not work very well. I could not find an easy way to get glass to look nice, so I just wouldn't recommend it. In Eevee. In cycles, you know, glass can look really, really nice, but you're going to have a very long render time. So just to give you a little idea. Okay. And then our backgrounds, just because we want these bottles to stick out, I like to make the background a bit darker. Make this one super dark. This, I don't know. There, maybe this one. Okay. So this is just all giving you an idea. And then, you know, so here we have a light plus an HDRI. Now these HDRIs really vary. So that's a studio. Let's do like a night or a a room. Here's a ballroom. Right? Now that's a totally different look, right? Let's see. So I'm gonna get out of my camera and just zoom in a bit so we can see it a little better. Okay, right. So see how, and then I'm constantly tweaking my camera so you get the best view. Right. Now what I really liked, because it's a studio, you kind of want to set a mood. I really like these night ones. So here's like a winter evening. So look at that. What a different mood that sets. And then my favorite one I settled on was the Satire Night. Look at that. That's very cool. I like this one because it works really well with lights. Right? So now once you set up an HDRI that you like, you can just close that and like practice this. If you can't do this, practice this for a minute because it's really important to be able to set up the Blender interface how you want. So I'm just setting my camera back up again. Okay. So now let's get in there and now I can add some more lights. Now that I have the HDRI I know I want. So I just Shift D to duplicate. And you can remember, so I kind of think of the HDRI as like a backlight, and then I'm going to make these, here's like a fill. And HDRIs won't give you much in the way of shadow. So that's why I like having these lights, because that's how we can get the shadows. And now, of course, get organized. I don't want to take up too much time on this, getting all organized. But, okay, cool. So maybe I'll zoom out a bit because now I want to show you the last thing, which is how to get things blurry in the background, right? So that's called depth of field. So in your camera, right here, you just tick on depth of field, unfold it, and it says which object you want to focus. So let's say, I don't know, what's the closest, like this white bottle. And this is when it's very important to name things, right? So there's white bottle. So we go back to our camera, and you don't have to do this. It's just, I think people like it. It looks good, right? Focus on object. Let's pick white bottle. Okay, nothing happened yet. So now this is, if any of you know anything about photography, that's when you'll see these settings here. So f-stop, usually the lowest f-stop is a 1, but since we're on a computer, we can like get really dramatic and make it like 0.1, 0.2, something like that, right? And now you start to notice things in the background get blurry, and it really helps us to focus on the still life, which is pretty cool. Let's see if I want this, maybe more over here so it's not centered. And see now the Blender background doesn't matter as much because we do have that HDRI in the background, which is nice, right? So then some final finishing little touches under the camera. You can do things obviously like turn on bloom is nice. Screen space reflections, pretty nice, right? Motion blur doesn't matter because we're not moving around anymore. The iMetrics doesn't really work. You can bump up your shadows a little bit. You know, I don't know. Just play around with this stuff, right? It's fun. Okay, so that's really it. It's kind of a lot of quick little things. So then, of course, render image. And please, if you do not know how to do this at this point, let me know. Okay, and there's our final little image. It rendered pretty quick. You might start to notice some limitations of your computer. So if this works really well for you, then when we go forward and start doing animations, do this. You know, you can make things look nice, realistic, shiny, it's fun. If this is making your computer crash, then, you know, you have to figure out the limits of your computer at this point. And then if you want to come into school and use a nicer computer, you can do that too. So one other thing that's, I don't know if I have the homework up. Yeah, so one other thing I mentioned on the homework that I want to mention that's really important in design is this concept of iterations. So you might have heard this term in some other classes. Iterations just means doing a bunch of different versions of something and picking the best one. So always, when you're doing something, do a ton of iterations. And we in class just want to see the best one. So like maybe you want to try a camera angle like this, maybe like this. Maybe you want to try like changing your lights and changing the strength or the color, right? So maybe you're like, maybe like a green is cooler. Maybe this one's cooler, right? and trying all these different lighting setups and stuff like that until you find something that you think is the best thing, and then render out a bunch and then compare them, right? So I guess, let's see, I'll do it, why not? So okay, so here I'm going to render this one. Okay, save as, pop it on the desktop. So I'll just call this I for iteration 1. Okay, now maybe, let's see, I'll adjust my lights. So maybe I want to see like with a green light, and my fill, maybe I'll try it different, something like pink, right? And then maybe, I don't know, zoom out a bit, something like that, right? I don't know. Maybe go in the camera, maybe that depth of field is like a bit much. Let's try it at 0.5. And now I do another iteration. I think the first one is better. Oh, maybe not. I do like that other lighting. So this one, I2. Okay. Any design job, this is what you do like all day long until you get the best thing. It's really fun. Okay, so now I can compare them. So you would have maybe, in a real setting, you would have like 100 of these. But for homework, I don't know, do like 10 or 20, why not? Right? And then you kind of look at them and you're like, okay, I like more depth of focus, but I like these light setup a little better, so I'm gonna like try a combination of both and then do a couple more. And just keep doing it until you get something that you're super proud of, and that you really like and you want to show off. Okay? And so that should be it, right? So I just want one perfectly made still life that you really like. And also, of course, as I always am saying, and I didn't have time to do, obviously, while I'm doing this demo, is think about the story. So this is just bottles, don't do that. At least this is like, I have 2 tables, that's kind of interesting. Like maybe this is like after a wedding or something. I got some fruit, some labels on the bottles. Like at least add a little bit of personality. This doesn't have a ton of personality to it, right? Because it's just for demo purposes. Cool. Well, have fun. This is a really fun assignment. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks.